in terms of the spiritual path, whatever you're in it for, then environment is really super important. Environment is one of the most important things. And this is why in the past, for example, in the time of the Buddha, that they made so many kind of provisions. And what's called the Sangha, which we generally in the West, we kind of think of them as like monastics, right? Monks and nuns, but it wasn't that. There are people who decided they wanted to dedicate their life to spiritual practice. And so what they did is they set up communities whereby individuals could dedicate as much time as possible just to their practice. And so environment's really important. And throughout the eons, and different nations, different cultures have had their own systems, right? You've probably seen pictures of Zen Buddhism in Japan, etc., and in China, in Tibet. They've got very specific ways of doing things. And it's all about creating an environment for practice. It's not about monastics who worship God and lay people who work, right? It's about people who think, this is really important, I need to be able to dedicate my time to that. As lay people, then it's quite difficult, right? Right, Cody, you drive a truck, right? You got to feed your family. You've got to pay your bills. For most of it, it's like that. So we need to find a balance between our working lives and our practice time, and you have to be creative with that. And so environment there is so important. And there's three aspects to environment. That's what we call the outer environment, the inner environment, and the secret environment. For example, we all come here, and everybody wants to go stay down in those rooms because they've got the view, right? They've got the environment, the outer environment, where you feel like you're in isolation, right? And you've got this beautiful landscape. It's got this open feeling, right? These are the outer conditions for inner practice. And that's why these sort of places are built, retreat centers, etc. And sadly, in the West, we don't have a lot of this. You know, in the monastic communities, they do have monastic communities. They're very restrictive. Like the Carmelites and things like that, they'll get some land on top of a mountain, and there might be like 8 or 20 monks all in their own. Nobody ever sees them, right? But they're trying to create an environment for contemplation and meditation. So we have to do our best. And then we have these short retreats. So the outer environment is like being away from the city, right? No cars. Even though we can see busy action down there, we feel separated from it. And then getting rid of the mobile phone, right? No television, that sort of thing. It's our outer environment. The inner environment is the placement of the mind. That's where we are not drawn away by our strong emotions. The thing is, they're linked, right? If I've got an addiction problem, and I go downtown, and I see people in a bar, then my mind's immediately going towards that. And it could be something that seems quite harmless, right? We could think, oh, I need to spend my time better, but then I keep turning to my mobile phone to find out what's going on in the world. So these outer things, they take away our mindfulness. The inner environment is your mental placement. But for beginners, for most people, you need an outer environment to create inner calm. That's why we come places like this. Now, in terms of what a secret environment is, that's kind of really difficult. It has to do with something called the view. So that's got to do with perspective and outlook. So you probably heard about karma in Buddhism. Well, it's about mental habituation and how that affects the way we project on the world. So somebody who has this secret environment, then it doesn't matter if they're in a city or if they're up here on a mountain. They could be in a busy marketplace, right? Or in the North Pole, it wouldn't matter. For them, they've got this way of looking at things that isn't dependent on external circumstances. But provisionally, then, like the monks and nuns, what do? They reduce the outer conditions so they don't give rise to desire and hatred and jealousy. That's their inner environment. The yogi has a secret environment, and then it doesn't matter to them. But that's really, really difficult. So we're not there. And then the thing is, in places like Tibet, then they literally put huge amounts of their resources into creating environment, hermitages. The same in Korea. I recently visited Korea, went to a Zen hermitage. They build these places right on top of the mountains like this, overlooking valleys, and you've got to like take a donkey ride up to get there. And once you're there, you never want to leave. They put so much effort into it. And that's because they value this sort of conditions, right? But in the West, we don't have that. We don't have this culture, and we don't have much respect for, like most people feel like they've been cheated by the church, right? They feel like, wow, Galileo, etc., was trying to tell us that there was this, heliocentric solar system. We weren't the center of the universe. And the church, wow, they like kill these people, etc., make them heretics. So we've kind of feel like religion's betrayed us. And because of that, we're kind of missing out. Because within all spiritual traditions, there's some really good stuff there. And it's got to do with the methodology, and like, for example, creating environment, etc. The conditions. What you need are the conditions for developing mental stability. So we kind of turned ourselves away from that, and we see a religious person, we think, Hare Krishna, weirdo. What? When I came back from Nepal, I got a lot of funny looks from people. And I spent almost 3 years here as a monk, on my own, And I get out of the car to do some shopping for my family, because I was looking after my parents, that's why I came back. And it's like you get out of the car to go to the health food store, and everybody just goes... One little girl said, "Mom, what the hell is that?" She was so cute, right? Their kids are really honest. So what do we do? What we do is we create solitude. And there's 3 types of solitude. This environment, the way we set up the conditions, is to create solitude. And there's solitude of body, speech, and mind. Right? And the solitude of body is like going to a cave, going into a retreat, removing yourself from the city, removing yourself from the mobile phone. And all beginners have to do that. Right? Advanced practitioners, they don't have to do that. Solitude of speech is where we shut our mouths. Because what happens is, you get in the dining room, you start talking about football, your mind starts going. In the morning when you're meditating, it's, I wonder if the Steelers will win this year, right? Or you start talking about your favorite heavy metal band and how they're like getting up to what they're getting up to, and then your mind just goes off, right? You start talking about Ukraine or whatever it is, politics, Donald Trump, right? And then the mind says tick, 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 and you never achieve this mental solitude. So what we do, and this is really common within all the monasteries, is keep your mouth shut. Because it helps you to reduce your thoughts. Initially, we have to reduce our thoughts. Eventually, you don't. If you're a really good practitioner, it makes no difference. You can daydream all day long, it doesn't make any difference. But if you're a beginner, forget it. Because as soon as your mind starts going off, right, you say something, it provokes something, and then the mind goes off on some trip, and before you know it, you've got yourself into trouble. You've punched somebody in the face, you said something that's hurt your girlfriend, whatever it is. Right? So there's this chain of events. And what we need to do is create this solitude, right, of body, speech, and mind. Speech is to keep the mouth shut. What is the mind? That's a difficult thing. That's what it's all about. That's what meditation's all about. First, to create mental quietude. What gets us into trouble is we have one thought, that impels another thought, another one. Before we know it, we're upset. I said something wrong. He criticized me, etc. And then that causes us to do what's called forming karma. That causes us to act out, for example, steal something, punch something, whatever it is. But of all of those, mind is the supreme. Mind is the most important. And that's why we spend so much of our time in our meditation. Because it's based on what we think that we then enact in karma. And when we enact in karma with body, speech, and mind. So you can hit somebody, right? Steal something, you can say something nasty, or you can have a malicious thought towards someone. But it all starts with the mind. You were asking earlier, why do we make offerings? It's the same thing. Why do we prostrate? It's about this aspect, about the mind. It's to make the thing, something sacred, important. It's performative, right? It's ritualistic. But that's the purpose why we go through these things. Is, I can't really think of a better word than sacredness. It's not got to do with God. It's not got to do with religion. But it's got to do with seeing something precious, right? If you were digging around in the mud and you found a piece of gold on the side of the river, then you'd be very careful with it, right? Anything we see to be precious. If there's an antique, if you're into buying antiques and you go to an antique shop and you see something, you'll be very careful with it. Or a newborn baby. Or if you pick a flower, then you're not careless with those things. And so we have these rituals that we engage in. And initially, provisionally, we do them to create this sacred space in mind. What are we doing here? Why are we here? Most people immediately think, I'm profiting out of this. I came back from the West. I was a monk at the time. And I came back because my mother was really ill. And so I had to leave the monastery to look after my sick mother. Recently, she's passed on. But I spent looking after her for 3 years. And I was trying to find something that I could do that would be beneficial, that was ultimately beneficial, make my life meaningful and not waste my life. In the past, when I was young, I wasted a lot of my life. Right? I got up to also, I was in a band, took drugs, had 3 failed marriages, do all sorts of things. But coming to the spiritual path and practicing and being fortunate enough to meet an authentic teacher, then I feel like I have something to share. And I also have some kind of, maybe not even that, I just kind of understand a little bit of what's going on. For example, this point about the environment, etc. And what was immediately obvious to me when I came back from Nepal to the West, this land is basically spiritually dead. I mean, there are people, there's this tendency now where we're moving in that direction. But it's very difficult. When you say that, it's like the soil, right? If you have poor soil, if you put a seed, it won't grow anything. And that's what it's like. And there's lots of people trying to plant seeds, but the conditions and the environment aren't there, and that's what's so important. So the idea I had was to start a meditation retreat. And when I say that to people, immediately they think, 1 week retreat, $3,000 a week, or a commercial thing, right? There's actually lots of that stuff in the West. You can go to your yoga retreat, pay $3,000, you get nice food and all that sort of stuff, right? That's not what I'm talking about. A place where people who get the idea, practice is really important. And if I invest my time in that, that's going to bring about benefits, not just for me, but for others. And so that's the kind of environment I'm trying to establish. And part of that was to start something called the Insight Sangha. It's a society, not-profit society. And the idea is to provide free retreats for people. And it's not easy, right? Now, these are the first 2 retreats that we've done. Kelly was here in the previous one, and Clinton as well, and Jeanette. And this is our second one that we've done. And then next spring, hopefully, we're going to do our first retreat at the property I'm building in Cortez. So that's like a start. And maybe, I might fail, but maybe sometime in the future, this might turn into something. And if there are enough people who see the importance of practice, then that is what is going to establish Buddhists in the West. It's not going to be established by some Hollywood millionaire giving $1 million to a Tibetan. Every Tibetan who says, oh, look, Tibetan Lama, let's give him $2 million. We've tried that in the past. And so what do we have? Fancy buildings, empty fancy buildings, and not people practicing, right? Where that's going to come from is not from me killing myself, working really hard and trying to make money and fund the thing and just wish it into existence. It's going to come from people like you getting a taste for meditation, and then in your own lives, that will naturally spread. You don't even have to sell it to your family. Like I was saying to you earlier, your family would be saying, what happened to you for a week? I haven't heard from you. Oh, I was on retreat. Retreat? What do you mean retreat? I was meditating. It was a silent retreat? And they'll be like, what, you can be silent? They totally can't relate to it, right? But the more people who do that, like everyday working class people, Cody here's a truck driver, right? How many truck drivers are there going on silent retreat? We normalize that. And through our own practice, for example, people might think, hey, he's kind of changed. What's he been doing for the last few years? He's not as angry as he was before. Didn't he used to be an alcoholic? That sort of thing. And then they start to hear about your story. Well, he's been meditating. He's been practicing Buddhism, whatever it is. That will have an influence. And maybe not in my lifetime, but in the future. We don't ask anybody for money, right? Or donations. The thing I want you to do, right? We're going to have this retreat. We'll be in silence soon. And then we're going to practice. And you have to ask yourself, be really honest with yourself, is this something beneficial or not? And then you have to remind yourself that it's something valuable. And then think of things, like creative ways that you can promote this in where you're from. If you have a local retreat center, you can call them up. Say, is there any retreats going on? If they have a lot of interest, they might put more on, right? There's different things, right? Like Eli's got a restaurant. I said to him, well, you could offer food to some meditators. You could say, I'm going to provide all the food for a retreat. Like maybe 2 years from now, if you make some money, if it doesn't go out of business. If business is going well and you're a Buddhist or you're a meditator, you'll think, hey, this is a good thing. And I would I would like to do my bit to help this happen. And that's what I hope. But like I say, I might fail. And the truth is that most people are takers. It's a sad truth, but that's the way it is. And for example, we did a spring retreat, and everyone said it was great and was really successful. But there's very few people who are proactively doing anything to promote that for the future for others. We have got donations, and there's some people who are involved in the previous retreat. You probably don't want me to mention their names, but they've made like continuous contributions, like monthly, whatever, $20, $5, $1 a month. 100 people do that, it's $100 a month. It means somebody else can get a free retreat. Right? For me, it's really important if we can develop something that's non-transactional. I don't know how it's going to work yet. I'm just trying it out, right? That's what we're doing here. It's an experiment. You guys are my guinea pigs, rats. And based on that, then maybe there's a future for this. And so one thing I ask you to do is to, if you please, give a testimonial at the end. And be honest, right? If you think this is something really good, you should think of ways that you can help this sort of thing happen in the future. If you think that was rubbish, then you should just tell people it's rubbish, right? I just put up everything everybody says. I don't, filter it in any way. And because of that, then we'll probably come around and take a picture of everybody at some point, if that's okay, and then you can just give your testimony. If you don't want to give a testimony, that's fine as well. It's nice, though, because when people look back, then you'll see the group on the website. They think, oh, yeah, I was there for a week. That was kind of cool. I decided to stay in the hut, and then it started snowing. Yeah, see, I didn't realize that you guys are into cold practice. We could have done some tumo, right? Get in our underwear, go sit on an ice block. We'll come pour cold water on your head. Okay, so now we've got an opportunity if you want to ask any questions. Because after the end of this session, we've got to go into silence, right? I know it's fun chatting, but it really stirs you up. You can see it, right? When you eat in silence, it's a totally different experience. Because you don't know what's going on. When you're talking about whatever it is, motorbikes or whatever people are into. It could even be things that are benign, right? Like helping out indigenous people, whatever. Geopolitics, you might think that you're on the right side of history. It doesn't matter. It makes the mind busy. And what we're going to try to do this week is to identify that subjective experience, that natural quality of your mind. It's not something I'm going to teach you. And whether you recognize it or not is up to you. It's really down to the effort you put into it. And if you recognize that within your own consciousness, then that's something that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. And so what we need is the environment. We need the conditions to come together. And part of that is keeping silence, right? And then like Tuesday, at lunchtime, we'll finish and we'll have like a nice meal or something. And then the last day, we can talk so we can say, oh, what time are you going to the ferry and all that, right? But in between, try your best. I know it can be difficult. But if everybody helps each other, it's easy. Because even if somebody comes up and starts talking and you go, then they'll think, oh yeah, I better be quiet, right? It's like we help each other. But if you just start getting in a conversation and talking about everything, under the sun, it's not going to help. So tomorrow, please show up on time. We'll sit down and we're going to start off tomorrow just by doing something really simple. There'll be no praying. You come in, sit down, and we're going to do some breath meditation. And the reason why is because this is a beginner's introduction, and we're going to start right at the beginning. And the pranayama is just used to calm the mind down and to start reducing the anxiety, agitation, confusion, distraction, everything else. Nothing complicated, just that. And if we keep silent throughout the day and stay mindful, and I will give you things to think about, like in the teaching sessions, like now I'm saying stuff, right? And it's getting your mind going. These are the things we want to concentrate on. This is what we call study, contemplation, and meditation. Meditation is the last. Study is having this discourse. Contemplation is when you are walking down towards the stupa and there's a nice sunset and you're thinking about where's the suffering, where does my suffering come from? Is my mind quiet? What's this thought going on? Right? You're dealing with your experiences. That's contemplation. Through that, then you develop the ability to meditate. That's certainty. Meditation is what we call certainty. And so tomorrow, we'll work on the breath. Next day, we'll take another object. We'll take another object. And the yoga classes are going to be in sync with this. Every topic that we cover is going to be covered in the yoga class as well. And that way we'll make it embodied, right? Because when you do asana and you do breath, then it becomes something that's like part of your continuum of body, speech, and mind. And then we'll talk a little bit about like the Abhidharma, which is like the science of Buddhism, you know, the way the mind works, where suffering arises, that sort of thing. Give you some subject matter to contemplate. And in your spare time, when you're eating, when you're walking, you can think about these things. Is this true? The Buddhist path is about being critical. It's the most important thing. If you hear like some of the Buddhist teachers, they say, the one thing I gain from Buddhism is I'm critical. And I'm critical about Buddhism as well. Whatever I hear, I don't accept it. I need to know for myself. And that's what it's all about.